and welcome to our weekly webinar. This happens at this time every week, and we talk about new features in the CI tools, or frequently asked questions about the CI tools, or sometimes we just go over how to use certain tools. We have just come off a run of covering a handful of the tools: keynotes, cabinets, and doors and windows specifically, from the point of view of a new user. This week we're taking a bit of a break from that, and we're going to be looking at the new features that we've just added to the coverings tool. So we released an update for the coverings tool. We actually released updates for all of our tools late last week to make them able to handle certain license types, but we've also added a bunch of new features to the coverings tool in particular, which we released about half an hour ago, and I'm going to go over the new features in that today. If you have any questions, please just enter those in the chat, and I'll check on that every once in a while. And I should note that everything that we're looking at today is only currently available in 27, and also only currently available on the latest version of the coverings tool, because these are the new features, obviously. So I'm just going to jump in and start off with what is new in this version. There are quite a few changes, and I'll cover those as we go, but one of the main new ones is that the coverings themselves have been built to use building materials now. So previously, the way that the coverings work was that you would place a covering and it would place a sort of a 3D thing that looked like the covering that it was representing, but it didn't actually have any structure to it. So if you tried to calculate the quantities that were in it and that sort of thing, that would be kind of difficult to do because Archicad wasn't able to read the individual parts of the coverings. Now all of those individual parts are made out of building materials, so Archicad can create a regular component schedule like you would to get the building materials quantities for anything else, and wall coverings and roof coverings will contribute to that now as well. So we'll look at that in a second in the interface. First, I'll just go and place a couple of wall coverings so that we can see what that does. So I've got this components by layers schedule here. This is just built into the default template, and it's showing the volume in cubic meters for all of the building materials I'm using currently. And I'm just going to create some wall coverings. So same way that we do that as ever. Wall coverings. I'll set the type of wall covering I want to use. I'm going to make some really big board and battens so that we can see the actual volume add-on, but you'll see over on the right here we have options for the building materials for the cladding. Now, don't worry about the fact that the interface looks different. We'll get to that in a second. I just want to show the building materials and then we'll move into that. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to select something that's easy to spot. Let's go with some plaster here. And what else probably isn't included in here? Maybe some gravel. Okay, obviously you'll choose something realistic. This is just for the purposes of example. And then I'll make the boards themselves quite a lot bigger, just so that we can actually see that number turn up. Place those wall coverings like normal. And it will place some very big wall coverings on my walls. But if I go to my component list now, you'll be able to see this is sorted by layer. So where's our, here we go. There's wall coverings. You can see we now are using plaster lime sand, which is what I said is the building material, and it's calculated the volume of that building material that is in the wall coverings. So you don't need to find specific parameters or anything like that to get out the quantities for your coverings anymore. You can just get out the volume of building material like you would with anything else, and it will give you that number. So that makes it nice and easy to generate those, and it will calculate volumes for the different parts of the covering as well. So if you put sills on your windows, for instance, or trims of any kind, those will all contribute to whatever building material you set for those as well. We added this function in because we've had a couple of customers asking recently about being able to generate embodied carbon scheduling out of Archicad, and obviously because your claddings previously were not using a building material, that was difficult. You would have to get the number in a different way and then add that onto your main component list. Now you can just do it with the tool by default. So that is building materials in the coverings tool. That's one of the key new features. Now, one of the things that happened due to us adding in an option to choose a building material in all of the settings for the coverings is that we ran out of space effectively to put all of those options in, and so we have taken the opportunity, rather than just trying to cram it in and make everything borderline unusable, we've taken the opportunity to redesign the interface to something that we think makes much more sense to use and doesn't shake things up too much, but I think it makes it much more streamlined to actually use the tool and find what you're looking for. So I'll show you that now. You will have seen it just before for a second, so I'm just going to go in again. I'm going to choose to add wall coverings, and you will see the new interface over here. So don't worry, I'll cover the other object in a moment as well. So you can see the configuration tab is quite a lot different looking than it used to be. And if I open up the menu, you'll see there's a very, very short list here compared to how enormous the old menu list used to be. And so the idea here is just to make it so that there are less places to remember to have to look for the thing that you're looking for. You just go to the page that has the area of the covering that you want to look after. So the cladding itself, the various trims or the opening settings, and then we can control everything inside the place for that. So in the configuration tab, we have changed the way that this works a little bit. As you may remember, the selection of where the coverings would be split was in a very long menu that let you choose the specific combination that you wanted. Now, rather than having to choose the combination that you wanted, you just click the buttons for the splits that you want. So for instance, if you want to have a split underneath openings and also at head height, you just click the underneath openings button and the above head height button, and you've got those both turned on now. The settings for those heights are shown at the bottom here, much the same as they were before, but now you just click on the buttons for the splits that you want and it'll do those. You can see them previewed just above as I do it as well. That's one of the other changes that we've made, is that the preview is now sort of more zoomed in to show you a representative sample of the thing you're actually working on. We'll drill a little bit more into that in a little bit, but it does make it so that when you're making these changes, you can see them more easily rather than on a zoomed out full view of the covering, which is how it used to work. So that makes it nice and easy to see what we're actually doing. So let's leave it with 2 splits for now. The rest of the settings are pretty much as they were before, choosing the shape and that sort of thing. And then once we go to the main wall cladding section, you can see where we apply the actual covering itself. This should look quite familiar to people who have used coverings before, because most of the way that it works is the same. We have the little diagram showing the covering type we have selected, so we can choose our different types of coverings here. This all works the same way as it ever did. You can set the settings here. Over on the right, we have our selection of our building material. So there's the icon for the building material, and you can apply whatever building material you want there. We've got an option below that to override the surface. So for instance, if you have, let's say in this case, for some reason, plywood weatherboards, we set the building material for that, but you know that you're going to be painting those, for instance, you can override the actual surface so that you don't have the plywood surface applied. You can come in here and say, I want to use the building material plywood, but I want it painted purple. So you still have the option to do that by just turning this paintbrush icon on and off. And the new change here, obviously, which you've probably already spotted, is this row of buttons in here. And these kind of act like tabs in a way, so you can go through the settings for each of these. So these used to be sub-menus before, but they're now all contained in the main cladding setting. So we can come in here, we can say this is the cladding style, this is the exterior corners, internal corners, ends, and joins, or changes, sorry, rather. So you can go through and change the settings for all of those depending on what it is that you want them to do. Obviously, they're set to none at the moment, so we can't really see anything. The other thing I just want to highlight, though, which isn't available on this first page, but is on the others, is these buttons here. So one of the things that you want to be able to do, for instance, if you have different trims that you want to show on various parts of this cladding, you can go through and set those up how you want, set the building material to whatever it is that you want, and then if you want to use that the same on all of these types here, you can use this button to the right here. So you can see at the moment it's got 3 circles that are sort of linked to each other, and that is showing us that we are using uniform settings for all of these pages here. So if I set this to floor carpet and then I go to this setting, you'll see it's set to floor carpet still. If I change this to concrete instead, and I go back to where I was, that is now concrete as well, because it's using the same setting across all of the tabs. If I untick this box, I can now have different on each. So we've got concrete set here. We can come in here and set it to aluminium and set this one to ceiling. And if I go back through them, you'll see that they're all different now. So we can lock and unlock that uniform setting there. And the same applies to this surface override as well. So you can do the same thing there. So using these tabs will let you control the same settings as you could before. They're just in tabs rather than in a submenu. And the rest of the settings work in a very similar way. So there's our split that we have, wall cutting below openings, and that works in exactly the same way. And then we've got our trim settings, which work in a very similar way to how they used to work. So you won't see much difference here. Obviously with openings, we have the tabs across the top for the different opening trim types here, but the actual settings of them are the same. And again, we have those same uniform or individual buttons running down the side there. So that's the new interface. I don't think you'll have much trouble with it if you've used the tool before. It's very similar. It just is a little bit easier to find where you are because everything is sort of in the one screen and you just click through here. So that is the wall cladding. I'm just going to hit OK and place this one. It places the same way as it ever would. And now we have our wall cladding placed. I'm going to look at roof coverings next, and we'll also look into some of the extra info that you might have noticed on the previous page. I'm just going to quickly check for questions and then I'll be back. All right, looks like we don't have any questions yet, so I will keep moving. Excuse me, I just for a second thought that my mic might have been muted, but it's not. So the next thing we're going to look at is the roof coverings, which again work very similarly to how roof coverings have worked already. We've got a roof here. So the way that we apply them is we go CI Tools, Coverings, Roof Coverings, and that will bring up the settings for that. Now, before I jump through the settings, I just want to cover this second object here. You'll see this in the roof and the wall coverings. You can see it says in capitals, deprecated roof covering, and for the wall covering it says deprecated wall covering. And this is the existing object. So the object that you're already using right now is this object here. Is not going anywhere. It's still there available. So you don't have to update to using the new building materials based coverings. If you don't want to, if you've already got coverings placed and you don't have any problems with the way that they're working and you don't need building materials in them right now, there's not really any reason to upgrade them. You can if you want to by simply doing the command click to inject the settings into the new covering object, but this will still work fine. It has a little note telling you what the deal is, why it's deprecated, how you can migrate the settings and that sort of thing. And if you want to keep using your existing covering, you can just press edit settings and you'll see everything as it currently is now. Nothing has changed there. So you can still use the old object, no problem at all. However, we're going to use the new one, and so that's the second option here. So all of your existing coverings, they won't be touched by this new interface change. A bunch of the fixes that we've brought in will still apply to the old coverings, but the interface change and the building materials thing is not going to be in the old objects. essentially we just couldn't make the objects be the same. There's too much difference between the way that they work with building materials. So we've got a new object. So I'll select this new one. And the layout of the roof covering is very similar to the layout of the wall covering. So we've got our configuration setting at the top here, which lets us set high-level information about the roof. And then we can go into the individual parts. You can see it's quite a pared down list again. And we can change the settings for those, as you might expect to be able to. So the settings look roughly the same. And we've got the new building material option over here. And then we've got things like, if we have a look at the edge boards, for instance, you can see that the sub-menus of the edge boards are now built into the one edge board setting. So we've got our fascia boards, our barge boards, our ridge boards, and you can click them from this menu, which is next to them instead if you prefer that way of working. So there's two options there. But these go through, and these will work the same way as the wall covering that I just showed did. So we have those different tabs for the settings. You can see there's a couple of these uniform or individual buttons again, which work in the same way. And one of the other things that I just wanted to show here is the new snapshot button, and this relates to also favorites. So as you saw, hopefully, in the roof covering, the preview image is now a sort of a zoomed and cropped area so that you can actually see the changes that you're making. So with the old covering, you saw this zoomed out view of the entire roof, which while useful in the sense that it shows you what you're actually going to see in 3D, you can't actually see what the gutter looks like from this zoomed out level, or even what the cladding looks like at this point. So it's not particularly useful. The new object will always show you this zoomed cropped view so that you can see exactly what it is that you're doing with your changes. And obviously they'll change in real time. So if we go through and we change to shingles, you'll immediately see the shingles show, and we can see what they look like in the context of everything else we have going on there. So that's really helpful for setting up whatever it is that you're doing with your roof cladding. But we also have this button here, which is a snapshot button. And essentially what it will do is it will snapshot or sort of freeze the preview window at what we're looking at the moment. So at the moment we're looking at the whole covering, but once we come down and we start modifying individual settings, there will be times when you want to make a change and see it in context with something else. So for instance, if I come through here and I say I want to modify the gutters or edge boards, for instance, we can go through here and we can say the fascia boards should be metal, for instance. You can see that change happen on the side as soon as I do that. We can say we want to override it so that we can see that easily going on. And now that we've got our nice red edge boards going on, we come through and we want to modify the way that the gutter works. But it's still a little bit busy. There's still quite a lot going on in this preview here. So what we can do is we can come through here and we can say, I want to take a snapshot because I'm just looking at this part. So I press the snapshot button and it will zoom to and isolate just the thing that I'm working on. So you can still see what the covering, it's sort of a representative sample of the cladding itself and of the board, obviously, because the gutter is related to the board because that's what it's attached to. We can still see that, but now we can make our changes to the gutter and we get this nice detailed view of what we're actually doing. And because we've snapshotted that, we can go through any other settings and we will still see this zoomed view. So we can go in here and change this to ribbed and we see how that affects the gutter. And that works for any of these other settings as well. So if you're concerned about your edge boards, for instance, we can snapshot the edge boards. Now we're looking at just the edge boards, and we can go through to a different page and see how that would affect what we set the settings for. The same for any of these downpipes. We can focus in on the downpipe. Flashing, we can focus in on the flashings so that you can see just that thing that's important to us right now. So we can go through and we can change our flashing to whatever it is we're going to do. And we can see that in context. But if we go back to cladding and make a change here, it retains that context. Or we can zoom back out to the full context by doing the snapshot at the configuration page. So that makes it nice and easy to see exactly what the change is that you'll be making and what it will look like. And because of that, it also means that if you save favorites, you get a favorite that looks exactly like what you're going to do rather than a sort of a zoomed out view. You can easily pick and choose between your favorites. So I can come in here and I can say, let's make a new favorite. We'll call it Fav1, and it looks exactly like what I have set there. And now we can go through and we can say, let's set up a different favorite now. So this one is some tiles that look like this. The flashing is purple, and my edge boards are made out of metal, and they are this color, for instance. And my downpipe is, I don't know, rectangular, let's say. So we can go through and make whatever changes it is that we want, and when we save that favorite, you will get a nice representative view in your favorites palette of exactly what all of those individual parts look like, and you can toggle between them and they'll look exactly like what you're seeing there. So this makes it much more useful. Obviously favorites still work the same way that they did before. It just means that the actual preview of them will show you a sort of a nice visual library of exactly what you're doing there, which I at least think is very nice. So that is the new favorites and snapshots part, and that was the old object that you could see before. So, and once we've got our roof covering, we can place it, and it will place as normal. If I go to my 3D view, you'll be able to see my roof covering and my walls, and they're doing what I've told them to do, much as you would expect for the coverings still to be able to do. And if I go back to the wall covering, I can just show you that old object there as well. It works in the same way, so it just says deprecated wall covering. It has all of the settings that you had before, so it tells you the information about what's going on. Press the edit settings button and you have the tool as it was already. Once we've pressed the edit button once on a placed wall covering, it will remember that we've said we want to edit it, so you don't have to go through that every single time. So if you've got existing projects and you're working on coverings a lot, you will not have to read that over and over every time you make a change. So that is the deprecated wall covering and the deprecated roof covering. So all of those new things are included in the update that we just released. It's update 4.35, which you can install via the CI Tools installer. We also have included a very large amount of bug fixes and enhancements to the way that things like intersections in particular on roofs work, intersections on corners and in ridges and that sort of thing. We've made quite a lot of changes to the way that those are handled, and you can see the control over how that works in the configuration settings here. So we've got the option to choose how the matching of the depth is controlled here, and then the roof edges angles match this roof option is available to have it match the edge angles of the roof, or you can override those with vertical, square, consistent, or set your own using custom as well. We have tried that. We've been testing this on just a lot of different roof coverings that we've had from various people to make sure that it does either the same job as the existing covering did or better, and in almost all cases it does do better. So we are hopeful that this will make your matching up of your angles and of your directions work much better as well. I'm very keen to hear feedback from anyone once you try the new version though. What do you think of the new interface? We have worked with a couple of customers as we developed this as well. Hi, if any of you guys are watching this, who have given us feedback on how the tool should work and how it could do better things for the way that they work and that sort of thing as well. So we think this is going to be a really good update, and we're anxious to hear what you think of it. So please, if you have any questions or if you just have any feedback, if you want to tell us that it's utter garbage or if it's the best thing you've ever seen, either way, I would love to hear that. Please send us through a support ticket. Although I will say, if you are wanting to tell us that it's utter garbage, if you could tell us specifically what about it is garbage, that will be amazing, because that allows us to figure out how we can make it work better for you. We try to drive all of these changes that we make to the tools by what you ask us for. And so if everyone comes back and tells us this is terrible, you didn't use favorites anyway, you never wanted building materials, we'll take that on board and figure out what we can do. But I am fairly confident that you will like this one. But that is about all I have for today. We will have documentation available for the new functionality very soon on our knowledge base. It should be live by tomorrow. And the support team here in Australia and New Zealand are ready to answer any questions that you have about this as well. So if you have questions about maybe a setting that you used to use all the time isn't there anymore, or you can't find it or something, please send that through to the support desk and just ask how you can find it again, or what it looks like in the new interface or anything like that. Just send that through to tech.support or nz.support@centralinnovation.com, and that will come through to our support team and they can help you out. I'm just going to quickly check for any further questions and then we'll finish up. Okay, so someone has asked, how do you apply different types of wall coverings to the same wall? So if the cladding is over a window, if the cladding over a window is different to the claddings on either side and below the window. So that's that can be done using splits. So if I go back into my settings here for my wall, that's controlled here on the configuration, so we choose what split that we want. So at the moment we've got it set to split the cladding below the openings, so we have one cladding that applies to every part of the wall except under the windows, and then that's a second cladding type. So we can control as many as we want those. So if we turn on all four options, we now have the main cladding, which is the cladding everywhere except under these other settings. So that's the main one. Then we've got the cladding above the head height, below, above the openings, and then below the openings. So that will cover all of those. So main cladding will be to the sides of the openings, above and below the sill and head heights will be above and below the sill and head heights, and above and below the openings will be below those. So the settings for them are all the same. So you've got the main wall cladding and then the cladding for each individual part. The way that they all work is the same. So we can go in here and we can say this is our main cladding, but then above head height, we want to use boards and battens, and then below the openings we want to use logs for some reason. I'll just color those so that we can see those easily. Hit OK, and then it will go through and it'll do those splits. So we've got generic, which is the default, applied to these sort of side areas. We've got logs showing below. We've got board and batten showing above the head height, and then our main cladding is this one off to the side, which is showing weatherboards there. So that will split it up into any segments that you want to have there, and they're all inside the one cladding object on the one wall, but it's split up like that. So hopefully that answers your question. All right, it looks like that's all the questions we have for today, but as I said, please feel free to send any questions you have through to the support desk, tech.support@centralinnovation.com. Ask us whatever it is that you want, and we will try to answer you. I haven't figured out what we're going to do for next week, so if you have anything about the tools that you'd like to see covered in next Thursday's session, please let me know on the support desk as well. That would be great. But thanks for your time, and I will catch you at the next one.